Hello, so today we're checking out the highly anticipated updates for Manor Lords. It has been many months since the announcements regarding most of these upcoming features, but we finally have access to everything. And I must say, it looks like they have done a lot with the development time. The amount of additions makes this feel like it's almost a whole new game. I've included a link to the patch updates and beta connection info in the description, but we'll dive in and check this out for ourselves here. In the update, they said that older saves will no longer work due to the significance of the changes, so we'll have to start a new town. But first of all, we can take a look at all of the new options for maps and game modes. So right off the bat over here, we can see that there's several new game modes available. We have the original three, which was the Rise to Prosperity, Restoring the Peace, and On the Edge. But these last two on the end over here utilize the new enemy AI town building. So the first one is called a duel, which will add one enemy AI onto the map. So if we go ahead and click that one, we can see, for example, here's our town right here, and the enemy's town will be right here, Margreth. So looks like they own this region. They would own this region to start, and they'll go ahead and start their town. And it's a whole AI town, so they do their own thing, and that will be your enemy on the map. Unlike before, if we do restoring the peace, for example, it would show the Baron, which is the off-map adversary. These ones are actually on-map adversaries. They will go ahead and build their whole town and do everything that you would do, but as an enemy AI. And so the last town, or sorry, last scenario here is the Fractured Realm. So this one is the same thing, but instead of just adding one enemy AI, it'll add several. So if we go ahead and select that one, we can see here on the map, now here's the one that we saw already before, but there's also a couple other ones. There's one up here, Thomas, and Conrad over here. So there's three enemy AIs on the map, which will go ahead and build their own towns, and you can interact with them and all that. So it's really exciting to see the actual enemy AI town building being introduced into the game here. The next really exciting thing is we can see there's several new maps available. So before the original, like way back in the beginning of early access, it was literally only just this Germanic Valley. Then they added the High Peaks and the Winding River. And now we have four new maps. So this Devil's Hill, which I know was mentioned in some of the update announcements recently, Jagged Cliffs, Divided, and Lake Lem. So there's four really cool new maps available here. We'll go ahead and try to take a look at as much as possible here in this video. But like I said, there are so many new updates in here. You could easily spend many dozens of hours, making new towns on all these different maps and checking out the new AI and stuff. So we'll go ahead and choose Lake Lem. This one does look pretty cool. Obviously, they all look pretty cool, but we'll get a look at this one. And let's go ahead and dive in and just see what's going on with some of these new updates. And we are in the Fractured Realm here, so we can take a look at some of the enemy AI around us as well. So let's check it out. All right, so one of the first things that we can check out here is if we open the map, we can go ahead and see that all of the artwork for the maps and the icons for all of the resource deposits and everything have been completely redone. And it looks really good. I gotta say, I feel it looks a lot more kind of organic and immersive with the whole medieval and old time sort of theme. I know a big part of Manor Lords is being historically accurate and kind of immersive with the medieval timeline. So I feel like these new icons and all the new artwork going on with the maps and all that is really good. So, and along with that, we can see that a lot of the deposits are pretty much the same. We have stone, clay, berries, fish, salt, for example. But some of these are a little bit different. You'll notice, like for example, over here we have a mushroom deposit. There wasn't mushrooms specifically before. So there's different variations of food types that can be collected here now. And so you can go ahead and check out whenever you get a new map here, you'll notice some of the deposits will be a little bit of a variation from what it was before. I noticed some of the maps too had, instead of fish, they were like eel deposits, which had a larger amount of the fish available in them and such like that. So you'll notice some of them are slightly different than what they were before, but for the most part, a lot of the resources are pretty much the same. And if we go back to our town here and open up the construction menu, we can see that same thing here. All of the artwork for the construction icons have been redone too, and all of the tooltips and everything. So these are really nice improvements visually already right off the bat. Now I'll get a town started here, but since this isn't necessarily a guide video on how to start a new town, I'm just going to skip through some of the main parts to show what's new with the updates here. If you're interested in guides and more detailed info on all the specifics of Manor Lords and logistics and all that kind of stuff, feel free to check out my channel where I have plenty of tutorials posted here. All right, so as you're starting a new town here, one of the main new things that you'll notice is that tools are now required for the construction of many of your standard buildings that you use for, logging camp, woodcutter's lodge, saw pit, etc. A lot of these buildings now require tools. And up until this point, the tools have been in the game but haven't really been used for anything other than maybe trade where you could sell them to make some extra profit. But now the tools are actually needed for the construction of many of your required buildings that you'll need for setting up your town. Furthermore, they are also needed for maintenance. So for example, our logging camp here, we can see there's now on the UI, there's this new maintenance tab. So right now it requires one tools a year to maintain this building, right? So the tools are now important to keep in stock. So you'll need to make sure that you're either producing tools or purchasing tools from trade to have them in your town available for both construction and maintenance. So on the UI of any new town building here, so for example, once again, we're just on the logging camp here. We can see here's the maintenance information. And as always, there's additional information if you hover over any of these question marks or anything, which is always great. I really like that they're adding more and more, tooltip and somewhat tutorial type of information into the game, because it can be, an overwhelming amount of information. There's a lot going on in this game, especially now that they're continuing to add more. On top of that, we can see down here we have yield information. So right now it's giving us information on how much wood is being produced from this building. We have a modest yield rate, and of course, if we change the amount of workers that are assigned here, etc., then this will go up or down. And then, the efficiency of your setup and everything. So this is actually really nice because I know in a lot of my guides, I harp on the importance of logistical efficiency in this game in Manor Lords. It is absolutely paramount due to the fact that everything needs to be physically transported throughout your town. And having access to all this information to show us the yield amounts, the efficiency right here. If we scroll over, we can see daily labor, efficiency. So these are all really good insights for us to have access to know if we need to make adjustments to the setup of our town, logistics and efficiency wise, and improve the yield. See, right now we dropped down. We changed from modest to fair, right? So we can see the yields changing here in real time. So it's good to have that information to know what might need to be changed as far as the layout of your town to improve all of that. Furthermore, we can go over here. The people tab is pretty much the same as it was before, showing which families are assigned here, where they are, what they are doing at that current moment, etc. And lastly, if you hover over this productivity portion right here for your villagers that are assigned, it'll also give you even further information about what is taking their time. So right now we can see they have a high productivity rate because they're spending 99% of their efforts on labor, which is fantastic. So you can see here if they have too much time spent on, transportation, all that kind of stuff. I really like that there's also a militia category, so you can see how long have they been, out in the field in combat, for example, which has been taking away from their productivity back in the town at their workplace. So there's so much more insights for us now to be able to track and, make adjustments as necessary to make sure that our town is running as smoothly as possible. So those are all massive updates as far as just the UI that's on any of these town production buildings. And I also wanted to point out that the tooltip information has been updated for basically everything on the UI. So if we hover over any of these categories here on our top tab, we'll get detailed information, way more than we had access to before, that shows on each category. So for example, if we hover over our available living spaces right here, it'll show us that we have +1, meaning that we have one that's also under construction. It'll show us how many plots we have, how many are occupied, and furthermore, on the bottom there, it shows us our monthly migration. So that's fantastic. So we can get way more information about what's going on with our population, our families moving in, how many are moving in, how many houses we have available, all that kind of stuff. And once again, same applies for all of these categories. So if we go over the approval one, for example, this gives us way more information than we had before. We get a visual representation on the top there with the bar showing us whether we're in the green, the neutral, or in the red. Shows us the current effects that are, impacting us, recent factors. we did have some of this information before, but it was a lot more limited. So all of these things have been expanded upon in a really great way. So just, feel free to hover over all of these categories up here and get much more detailed information on the tooltips here. And, once again, this game has a lot of, micromanagement involved with running your towns. So all of this added detailed information is just absolutely huge and game changing. So that is one of the big things that I wanted to point out here before we check out more of the rest. So next thing we'll take a look at is if we go up to our region tab and we click on this, we can see that the development tree here has been completely overhauled. Many of these are still labeled as coming soon and they have the gate over them. So it's not quite filled out yet and we can't see everything. However, when you get to the first settlement level, you'll unlock this one for origins. And within here is 9 new development points. So the old development tree system is completely gone. And these new development points, you'll see they all have a unique variety of factors that come along with them. So you can scroll over any of these, click on them, and check out all of them. But we can just check out a few of them here. First thing you'll notice is that they come with several benefits, but they also come with a penalty. Each one of these is kind of a double-edged sword. So for example, this one right here, clothing durability increase. So consumption of all clothing goods minus 50%. Sheep are more resilient, efficient hunting camps, and however, trade routes are more costly, right? So each of these things, each path that you choose here essentially will come with benefits, but also a penalty. So comes with a lot more planning involved, right, with how exactly you want to set your town up. And then, of course, as more of these become available down the line, the customization of that will only become more and more and more, right? So we can see here the foundations of this that, if all of the development points down the line have all these, factors involved, the amount of customization that you can apply to each town is going to be immense. Furthermore, there's another tab that's been added here for environment. This is a really big one. So basically, each environment has different biomes, which offer different unique benefits or, once again, penalties, I guess. So for example, the environment that I'm in, the region that I have right now, majority of the land is woodland. And so if we scroll over these woodland right here, connected affinities. So each region type or environment type has affinities connected with it, which offer benefits for certain types of resource gathering, usually applied to food. So for example, right here, we can see swine grow fat on mast and acorn, chance of extra yield from pigs proportional to the woodland environment, current effect 59%, right? So we can see this one has teaming, growth rate of berries, animals, mushrooms, trapping. We can see tannery yields are increased, right? So woodland has those benefits. We also have some meadow area in our region here, which offers pollination, increased crop yields, and also for apiaries for collecting honey. I know in the last video that I made for the food tier system, in the honey category specifically, I said that, I think the honey will become a lot more powerful in these upcoming updates due to the affinity system that they had mentioned upcoming. So we can see the effects of that right here. So essentially, if we were to use apiaries, if you have a region that has a lot of this meadow environment, using apiaries are now going to be strong if you have good effects on the pollination and the wilding, for example. But we can see here, there's also, farmland. In this region, we do not have rich or fertile farmland, so we don't have any connected affinities. There's also a category for rural and urban. So each of these different categories offer different unique benefits. So there's a lot more involved in what region you choose or what region you are dealt with to start with. Much more before it was basically just, what resources are in the region and where are they, which is still a factor. However, now there's layers on top of that. So the environment tab here will give you a lot more information on that kind of stuff as well. And lastly, we have the records tab here. Now the trade portion of this records tab was already in the game. So for example, I can see that, I've been selling planks, and we can see our transaction list from that and see how much gold we're making from that, imports, exports, etc. The big new addition in the resources tab right here. So if we go to the resources tab, this is for our region right here, and we can see right now it's on the past 12 months. So it's going to show us how many planks have we produced and how many have we consumed and what's our ending balance, for example, right? So same for any, anything that you have in your town. Right now, our town is still pretty small, so we don't have too many, resources that are in here. But you can see right here, for example, it'll show you how much is in stock, how much have you produced, how much has been consumed, and what's your leftover amount. So right now we can see we're like barely in the positive on firewood, for example. So maybe we need to increase our firewood production. And we can see this is in the last 12 months. So past 30 days, look, I mean, our firewood consumption has gone down because I stocked up a bunch and then I took the villager off the work site for that. So basically we're only consuming it. So this shows me like, oh, yep, I gotta, maybe think about getting firewood going again, right? So this is another fantastic look at what's going on in the resource consumption versus production in your town. You can also just set it to any specific category that you want to see. And if you click on any of these specific resources, so for example, we can see this is the graph for our firewood stock. Here's the graph for consumption, the balance, et cetera. So this is fantastic as far as, once again, making the management of our towns just that much better. So we have so much more control over all of those different factors. Another thing to note about the revamped development tree system is that some things that were locked behind development points before are now available as standard options for your town. For example, the charcoal kiln was before locked behind a development point that you had to spend in order to be able to utilize this building. However, now it is just available as a standard option that you can build in any town, regardless of what you've chosen for any development points. So that is a huge increase, for example. If you've watched any of my videos, you'll know that I've harped on the fact that charcoal is the absolute GOAT for economy. So the fact that now that you can utilize that without even having to spend a development point is amazing. Furthermore, if you go to the trading post here and we look within the trade tab, you'll notice that a lot of the trade routes have been adjusted with their prices. It looks like most of them are pretty much just reduced in price. So for example, if we go to the charcoal trade route is now only 30 regional wealth, at least for the first one. So we can unlock that here. And if we go to export, we can see that the value of this has been nerfed. So charcoal isn't quite as, prolific as it was before. I believe it was 5 regional coin per charcoal before. However, 3 regional coin per charcoal is still really good. So I still recommend utilizing charcoal for trade heavily. And the fact that you don't need to spend a development point on it to be able to utilize it, and it's only a 30 regional coin cost to open the trade route, makes it even better. Like I said, the export price has gone down slightly. However, I think that this is still going to be one of your best options for trade. And similarly, we had orchards, which were locked behind development points before as well. Now you can see that orchards are an available housing addition to any house. You don't need to spend a development point on it anymore. So that's another fantastic addition. You can also build an apiary in the housing extension on any house now. So once again, tying into the affinity, for example, in this region, looks like we have good affinity for the pollination and the wilding of getting good yields from our apiaries. So if we place apiaries in the backyards of houses, that would probably be a really good idea based on the environment that we have in this region. So once again, there's more options available and less restrictions on the development points based on how that's been reworked. And as I mentioned before, with the tooltips having more information on them, same thing here. If we hover over our berry deposit, we can see now the affinities that are affecting this. So we can see pollination and teaming are a factor here for this berry deposit. So now that we're about a year in on this town here, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these AI towns. So right next to us here in this region, we have a neighboring AI town right here. So we can see that this is what they've done in the last year. Looks like they have a pretty decent town going on here. They have a manor built. They've got a good residential area. They've got their church. Looks like they're gathering stone, clay furnace. So they've got a lot going on here in this AI town. This is just one of them. Like I said, we chose the map, the game mode that had four total, including us, so 3 enemy AIs. There's another one right over here. Take a look at their town. Looking pretty similar. And then there's one more down on the bottom here. And we'll take a look at their town. And yeah, so they all look pretty similar, but let's be honest, they look pretty good. They've got a lot going on. They've got good residential areas. They've got their church, they've got their storage, markets. They're gathering resources. It looks like they're importing oxens into the town with their stables. I mean, these AI towns are looking pretty good, to be honest. So, um, I heard from the developer said that it's still pretty early on as far as like the combat engagements and stuff like that. But so far, I mean, he was saying that making natural looking towns and stuff was a large priority for them. So it's looking pretty decent. So I just wanted to give you guys a look at what the AI towns are looking like now that we're about a year into this playthrough. And we'll go back to our town here. And to be honest, it looks kind of similar, right? So the AI towns are not doing too bad. So one of the big things with this update was the addition of the stone blocks, which will be used for creating the stone castles, which I know we're all very excited for. However, it's important to note that there's now actually a few different categories of stone. So in order to make stone blocks, you actually need access to a rich stone quarry. So regular stones, which are, the ones that were already in the game, which you just build a stone gatherer camp and they go and collect, they're only going to get rubble stone. Rubble stone can only be used for, standard building requirements. For example, our manor requires rubble stone, or the church requires rubble stone. But anything that's going to require the stone blocks, or dressed stone as they're called in this game, will require getting rough stone, which is only obtained from a quarry built on a rich stone node. So having a rich stone deposit node will actually be quite desirable at this point. Otherwise, you will need to expand into a new region that does have it to get access to it, or you'll need to purchase it through trade. So if you build one of these stonemason stations right here, and you notice that they're not doing anything, it's most likely because you only have access to the rubble stone and not the rough stone. So that's an important thing to note here with the new stone additions to this updates here. So just wanted to point that out because that confused me a little bit here in the beginning. So these guys right here are basically, they should not be assigned here because they have nothing to do, because I only have access to the rubble stone in this region here. So we'll need to get access to rough stone in another way if we're going to try out the new stone castle building. All right, and last but not least, we're going to take a quick look at the castle planner here, which I know is one of the features that basically all of us are extremely excited for. Who doesn't want to build a badass castle, right? I won't go into too much detail here because I'll probably make a guide that's just all about the castle planner and all the details involved with it. But I'll show a little bit about it here and how you can utilize it and how you can, build your castle here if you want to try it out. So when you build your manor, everything will be normal, as it was before, where you build your manor and it has the option to open the castle planner. This is the castle planner, and you'll see it looks basically the same as it did before. You can build walls and gates, the outer tower, garrison tower, or the tax office, which still has no actual function. So what we need to do here, if we want to actually turn this into a castle, is you can build parts. So let's, for example, we're not going to build a full castle here, like I said, but for example, if we wanted to put walls around our manor area or our castle area, we could place a wall here. And now if we go ahead and select this section of wall, what we do is we can upgrade it. So right here, we upgraded the wall level, and now it will become a stone wall. And instead of requiring wood resources, it requires the stone blocks or the dressed stone. I've been importing some in this town here just so we can have a little bit to work with and practice with. And the other feature is if you want to add a rampart for your military units to be able to garrison on, add this right here, and then it'll add a rampart. So say we had archers that we wanted to position up here on the rampart, and we had our castle in a strong defensive location for some military encounter. We could utilize the ramparts up here to station some units, and that'll be a very strong strategic advantage. And same thing with all modules. So if we click on the actual manor here, we can actually upgrade the manor itself to level 2 as well. And you can also place, for example, outer tower. We can have if we wanted to have a tower over here, you can go ahead and upgrade the tower as well to a level 2 tower. And you'll notice these ones require wood and the stone blocks, but they also require mortar. So mortar you need to get, I know earlier we briefly mentioned about the stone blocks and how you can get those going. But the mortar, you'll need to build a lime kiln. This is another one of the new buildings. So I'll show you here in the industry tab. We have the lime kiln right here, and you'll see workers burn rubble stone into mortar. So this one's a little easier to utilize because we don't need to, have access or import the rough stones like I mentioned earlier, because that is now different from the rubble stone. Most regions will have access to at least some rubble stone. So you should be able to create some mortar basically no problem. So we have our lime kiln going there to get us some mortar. We're importing some stone blocks. And so, if we wanted to try out making some of these modifications to our castle planner, that is how we would do so. So hopefully this will show you, how you can utilize the castle planner and how you can upgrade your castle setup and all that kind of fun stuff. Like I said, I won't go too much further than that because I will be creating probably a whole guide specific to just utilizing the castle planner, how to get a really good setup and utilize all the functions and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that gives you guys a good look at what's new in the updates here in Manor Lords, which we've all been waiting for many months, so this is very exciting stuff. I'll be making more guides and information on all the specifics and details of all these things, such as the new development points, the castle planner, all kinds of details with the affinities, and what environments and regions and all that kind of stuff. However, I already do have a lot of guides here on my channel, so feel free to check those out. A lot of the information will need to be updated, so like I said, I will be coming out with new guides and information, so make sure to subscribe and follow the channel for more of that stuff, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much. Peace.